Hey, welcome back. And this is lesson number 2 of the module Start Your Own Consultancy Overview. So in this one, we're going to be looking, just a recap. We were looking at what you need to actually make that first start in lesson 1 and the legal components and regulatory considerations, insurances and the like. So what we're going to be doing now is talking about your business planning and strategy. This is really the next step in forming your consultancy. Now, if you remember in lesson 1 towards the tail end, I spoke about the need to have an accountant, and I will be talking in another module about people that you need to have on board. I'm kind of setting the scene for it as I go through the lessons, but I will be covering a completely separate module, people that you need to have on board, one of them being an accountant. So if you wanted to, you could actually consider engaging someone who specializes in business planning and strategies. But to be honest, as quantity surveyors, we are generally reasonably proficient with knowing about projections, because that's what we do in our job, albeit from a financial perspective. But we understand projections and the need for having a plan, and then being able to monitor that plan to make sure that we are on track, either by money or time. If we're looking, obviously a programmer is responsible for the time aspect, but or a planner, depending on what you call them in your location. But essentially we're aware, even if we're not directly responsible for that work in terms of time, we're aware of the need to plan and control, and most particularly in finances, that's what us QSs do. So it's not an alien concept when we talk about business planning and strategy to be able to get your head around what that might entail. But by all means, consider a specialist. It really depends on who you engage. Like everything else, then there's going to be expensive options and cheaper options, and generally the old adage that you get what you pay for is actually quite applicable. So by all means, have a sniff around in your location and explore and do your research. But this is something that, particularly with the use of the internet and online like platforms that enable you to build a business plan based on information that you input, like templates, you can actually get your answer to a business plan and strategies relatively straightforward, simply, and all it's really going to entail is your time and possibly some minor expenses. So you should all be aware of really what a business plan is. It's essentially, as the name suggests, it's a plan of what your business is going to be about, how you see it transpiring, what you actually do. And it is essentially how you see your business unfolding. And now, my experience is that you at least need to do one full year in advance. If you can do more, then that's great. But also, it's my experience that the first year is always the hardest year, and it's quite difficult to kind of see beyond that year until you get into that year, if that makes sense. So generally what I do is I encourage people to write a business plan for a 12-month window in the future. But I also ask people to put conditional checks in and look at that business plan every 3 months without fail. And slowly, as your business grows, you'll be able to see at that first 3-month checkpoint whether your projections were realistic or what fine tuning you need to do. Your business plan is live. Don't think of it as you've written it and in 12 months' time that's the only action you need to take on it. No, it's a live document, and you continuously need to be looking at it, updating it, because it feeds you the information back into your business as to how and why you're perhaps not meeting the projections that you thought you were going to meet. I personally look at projections on my business every single day, because I go to that kind of granular level of detail. And I'm not necessarily promoting that you do that right now. That's comes with experience, and once you've had 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years into the business, you'll start to have a lot more insight into things that you need to do regularly in order to keep your business maintained. But certainly when you first start out, write a business plan for 12 months and get super conditioned to review that every 3 months as a minimum. If you want to do it every month, absolutely no problem with that at all. But your first year, you're going to be having so many other things to get your head around. This is not necessarily one that you're going to want to kind of spend too much time on, because you're spending time on so many other things that are equally important, if not more important, within your business. Okay, so an executive summary is normally an important part of your business plan, and this is really setting the scene for, as the name suggests, what the business is about, why you are doing it, what your mission statement is, and some very high level projections in terms of what you're trying to achieve within the business and how you're going to achieve it, your execution plan, and these type of things. You need to include a description about your company, and again, that's really about what your objectives are. Who are you going to serve? How are you going to serve them? And any other detailed applicable data as may be appropriate. Now, the next one is where people start to get a little bit confused, and it's what we call a market analysis. Again, you can dive deeper into this by going into research just through Google. You can download sample business plans. I suggest you look at more than one, because different people have different ways, but the core principles are generally what I'm going to be speaking about. The outputs are the ones that kind of vary, and depending on how, as I say, granular and in-depth you want to get. For your first year, I would suggest you're not going to be getting that much into depth unless you go and engage the services of a specialist. But this is all doable by yourself if you're willing to put the time and effort into it. So a market analysis is just really, as the name suggests, it's not anything more complicated than what it says on the box. You need to decide as part of your business who and how you're going to serve people, whether you're going to be a local entity and only serving customers, let's say within 30 to 40 kilometer radius of your house or office, or whether you're going to be, statewide, or countrywide or worldwide. I would really suggest that you don't start off with too much of a spread, because that's going to potentially get overwhelming. But once you've decided how you're going to operate and where you're going to operate, you look at essentially how many other people are providing services in your area. You look very closely at who those companies are. When you're first starting out, you're just a single person, and you're going to be building that business, and hopefully one day you'll be having people working for you. But you still need to understand who else in your geographical location within the radius that you have set yourself is operating. And the reason why is because you use that to look for market opportunities. Okay, you may well say, well, there's 3 QS companies in my radius of where I am, but they're all companies that have 50 QS staff, and they're not comparable to me, so I'm going to ignore them. No. Don't do that, because that's giving you actually valuable information as to what potential customers you could be looking for that are not interested in using a company that has 50 staff. Okay, and we'll get more into that when we talk about marketing. But a market analysis, you need to be fully aware of everyone and every company that is in your surrounding location that is providing the same service that you want to be providing, so that you understand your competition and who you're up against. Super important. Okay, now your organization and management structure. I put this in here, but in all reality, when you first start out, it's you. So you don't really have an organizational structure, it's just you, right? And don't fall into the trap of like what so many people do by calling yourself a managing director or a CEO. You're not, because you're not managing any people, right? You're a sole proprietor or a single director or a single principal. Don't get illusions of grandeur about calling yourself something that is not applicable to what you're doing, okay? No one really cares what you call yourself. They only care about what you can provide to them and what service that is going to come that's going to be of value to them. Okay, so it really doesn't matter. Now, the next one within your business plan is the services that you offer. This is super important, and it may seem obvious, but what are you actually going to do? The tendency for people starting out is that they want to take everything on. Okay, a fee is a fee. I would caution you against this. I think what you need to do is get super specific. Again, we'll cover it in marketing, but you need to get super specific about what services you will and won't provide. The reason being is that a jack of all trades is not necessarily going to be the best way to leverage the most amount of money within your consultancy. Again, in marketing, I'll talk more about this, but the more you niche down, the more specialist you become, then that's when you can force higher prices because you're restricting your competition. Okay, so have a good think about that. There's lots of opportunities with it. Again, I don't know your location, I don't know your specialization. It's going to be different whether you're like coming out of a professional consultancy or working in a main contractor or a subcontractor or even a supplier or whatever the case may be. Who you actually provide that service to is going to be based on the experience that you have to date. So if you're an MEP/QS, then you shouldn't be thinking about providing services to a drain layer necessarily. Or providing services to a tiler, because it's kind of like slightly outside of what you're doing. Okay? Not to say that you're not capable of it, but concentrate on where your specialized skill is, because that's what's going to maximize your bank in the longer term. Right, now your marketing and sales strategy, you need to give this some thought. And again, I know I keep saying it, but we're going to be talking about marketing in another module. However, it still needs to be part of your business plan. So it's probably worthwhile just parking that one for the conversation of business, and we'll talk about that in more depth in the marketing module. Otherwise, I might just confuse you, which is really not what I want to do. Financial projections is the next one that needs to be in a business plan, and this is super important. Right? And when you start out, don't expect that anything that you put, and this is kind of like going against the grain for a QS with a QS brain, but you need to start from somewhere. You don't know what's going to happen with your business. You don't know how it's going to pan out, but you have to have a baseline, right? You have to have a baseline, and that baseline needs to come from what are you looking for? What are you going to be comfortable with in that first 12 months of trading? Because if you don't set yourself a target, you'll never know whether you've achieved it or whether you've underperformed or overperformed. So it needs to be realistic. That's the first thing that I want to say. And it needs to be your best guess. And the reason I'm saying guess is because when you're starting out, you don't know. But unless we document something, you have no goal to drive yourself towards. And this is why it's important to do it. So I would set yourself out, and what we're looking at in the first 12 months of trading is for you to be running your consultancy, as I said at the beginning, simultaneously with working your full-time job, until we get to a point, at some point within that first 12 months, where you're earning at least equal to what you're earning as a paid employee. And then when we can consider or you can make the decision as to when you exit from the company. So until you get to that point, generally it takes minimum 6 months. Some people take up to 12 months, but anywhere between 6 and 12 is when you're at the right sweet spot to exit a full-time job. Now, I have to caution that's super dependent on how much work you put in, your location, and how much you apply all of what you're getting in this course and how you act upon it. Because if you're going to be lazy with some of the action, then it could be taking you 24 months, 36 months. I don't know. I don't know your intention, as we said earlier, in the foundational modules. You know, you have to want this. Okay, you have to be in it to win. Okay, you have to be in it to win. So, on average, 6 to 12 months. Now, I would probably work for projection-wise that you're going to exit your full-time job at month 12. That way, you're making it slightly easier for yourself to exceed your targets, and that's a confidence mind thing. Okay. So if you're earning X as a paid employee, then you want to be looking to grow your business, maybe 10% per month, and start off with something realistic. So, if you're at X, aim within the first 2 months to bring in a first client and say X times 15%, and then grow your business 10% from there per month and see how that looks. And then you start adjusting it to what you think is reasonable. If you already know that you're having conversations with people about work and you know that you have work that you can book in, then do that by all means. That makes perfect sense. Okay, I'm not saying just follow a formula blindly, but if you have nothing to start with, that's something to start with. And then again, your projections, unlike your business, your projections you probably need to look at like weekly, because you're going to be marketing, you're going to be putting yourself out there, you're going to be acting on impulse to get this thing growing and gain momentum. You're not going to want to wait 3 months to see how you're doing. You're going to be wanting to do that like regularly. Okay, as I say, I do mine daily, but I'm in a different space than you because my business is established. But you need to. It needs to become a regular like ritual. Now, strategic planning for growth and sustainability should also be in your business plan, but for the time being, your first 12 months, I would just keep it simple and just set yourself a target. Like, I want to grow by, or I want to add 20% to what I'm doing every year until I reach year 5, and then just think about how you want your business to grow, where you want it to be, and go like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year. And if you're thinking that at some stage you want to exit from a business, what's going to be your strategy? This is a strategy of when you want to sell the business or have someone take over it and you walk away with a large amount of cash as a result. Put that into your strategic growth plan. Super important, particularly when you want to scale the business. Okay, and the last one is, you may have heard this. If you haven't, I would urge you to go and look it up. It's the SWOT analysis. This is really important, and I kind of talked upon this in the a few minutes ago when you're looking at the market analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is what SWOT stands for. And you need to look at all of that in detail. Okay, so it's not my intention to get super deep into a SWOT analysis within this. I do in my more detailed program, but I think you will have all the tools that you need by doing a Google search and pulling templates and having some consideration to what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Okay, So, you know, a threat could be if you're a single person business and there's 10 person businesses in your location, in that defined area that we spoke about in market research, then that's a threat. Okay, and you need to look at what mitigation policies you're going to put in place. It may be that, you know, 8 of those specialize in concrete, 2 of them specialize in landscape. Well, you just don't provide any services to those people, let them run with it, and you concentrate on something that's missing in your location. But the SWOT enables you to understand everything in your business and how you leverage the strength, how you put data behind the weaknesses and put strategy behind the opportunities. So definitely get your head around that and have a think about that. And once you've all got those sections, go and buy yourself like a lever arch file or something and just build your business plan and keep it active, keep it live. You know, that's the best way to see if you're going to be growing. And as soon as you get a thought, put it in there, write it down as a series of notes, and then just expand on it. Keep it as a live document. I personally, with business plans, keep them on like a Google Drive, and I just keep them live all the time. I don't have a physical print because I'm not really a fan of physical prints in this day and age, but I know some people do like to have the hard copies with them. So whatever your preference is, then just work with what works for you. Don't be guided by me telling you this has to be the way that you do it. No, you know, whatever way you choose, so long as you get the output that you're needing, then that's good enough. Okay, so with all that said, I'm going to give it a wrap for this particular lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.